So I want to talk to you guys about the books that I read for the past month. It wasn't an exorbitant list, but I still feel quite proud and happy that I was actually able to kind of kickstart the year with some decent reads and just get my eyes moving and used to just absorbing words on a page, you know? So I read 5 books last month, and some were good and some were like okay, but nothing was bad. I enjoyed everything that I read. I just don't think that any were like stupendously like, this is the best thing I've ever read in my life, you know? So yeah, let's just get right into it. So we're gonna start with Eve Bunting's SOS Titanic as one of the very, very first books that I was trying to read. Basically, we're following this 15-year-old boy named Barry O'Neill. He's from Ireland, and he's taking the maiden voyage, the fateful maiden voyage on the RMS Royal Mail ship Titanic. So Barry, he is such a, like, he's the hero character. He's like a good boy, strong little, honest and fair kid. I really liked his character. I felt like, you know, he's a good buddy and a good friend, that you would want to have by your side. So, Barry kind of comes from a little bit of wealth. He is located in the first class of the ship, and he also is traveling along with, of course, a bunch of people from the United Kingdom, including some rebellious and troublemakers, which we'll call the Flynn boys. That's their actual last name. So he's kind of worried about, you know, those kind of bullies on board the ship, but those folks are in the lower deck. They're third class citizens or third class passengers, and they are located in the steerage, which is pretty much below the waterline of the ship. Not to give too much of the plot, of course, everybody knows what happens in the Titanic story. So the main thing about this book that I absolutely was like, well done, Eve. Well done. You feel this sense of like impending doom, impending danger, this dread that's like washing over you when you read the story. It's like, honestly, a page turner, very, very easy to read, except for towards the end when the iceberg hits, and you know, they're loading the passengers on the ship. It's perfectly fine. The writing is okay, it's clear, but as the ship is truly sinking, the bow, which is the front of the ship, I believe, is going under. That's the way that she painted it, that the bow was going, you know, under and not like sinking like it really got muddled. Her writing for me got a little bit muddled and chaotic, and like it was kind of hard to place people and what exactly they were doing. If you like the 1997 Titanic with Leo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, and the like, Billy Zane, then you will love this book. I felt like I was literally reading that story. And this is a 1996 published work. So I'm wondering if there's something else that is in the past, maybe the 60s, the 70s, or even earlier works, because this is a 1912 tragedy, a true tragedy. So we're coming up to 110 years, literally this April, of the sinking, this maritime disaster. It's so sad. It really is. It's just, can you imagine being out in the middle of the ocean, the Atlantic, at night, or morning if you look at it that way, because it's the early 2 a.m., 1 a.m., 12 a.m. The dead of the night, and the only thing that you have that like lights up the sky a little bit are stars. So I don't believe the moon was out or anything like that. So it's just so scary, and it's absolutely just freezing. And I always think about, you know, those folks who were able to make it into the lifeboats, who are watching from afar, seeing the ship, you know, go under, and then seeing the power go out. Oh my gosh, it really just like, I feel for them, and I'm like, I was quite anxious as I was reading this. It was very tough to read this because it's like, this is a real story. These are real people. Although this work is fictional and whatnot, it still, it still impacts you. So I really love this book. If I had to give it a rating, I'm not really gonna kind of explain my rating system, but just something out of my head, I would give this around a 3.5. Because there's certain things that I was like, what the heck's going on here? Like the end, it felt super rushed. The way that the iceberg scene happened, it just kind of like unraveled so quickly that you just didn't really know what was you knew what was happening, of course. Iceberg hit the ship, or the ship hit the iceberg, if you want to say that. But yeah, it felt like very rushed. Like a very rushed ending. You don't necessarily, follow the story of the main character Barry after after they are rescued. So Barry does live. Yeah, after they were rescued by the Carpathia, which is another ship that received the distress call. You don't really follow their story afterwards, which is, of course, kind of okay, I guess, but I kind of wondered what the heck happened. So, as I was saying, Barry, along with a bunch of other kids, and of course adults, and everybody else, the crew, the staff, and babies and children and women, everybody, they're on the ship, and you can just feel the decadence in the first class area. There's like carpet and palm trees, and the food that they were serving, oh my goodness, duck that's doused with like a brandy, and Devonshire strawberries, fresh strawberries with Devonshire cream, and just the luxuriousness of it all really just made it so elegant and like beautiful. You can feel the beautiful lights and the chandeliers and the air of music always playing for the first class. And then in the lower, you're not going to get that kind of atmosphere. No carpet, we got hardwood, so it's like, dingier. Of course it's new because this is like a new ship, but it feels like, it's not as elegant and luxurious as the first class. This is opulence that is really readily available for our first class citizens, including those folks who are attending to them. So yeah, I give this like a 3.5, as I said, because of the rushed ending. I don't particularly like this kind of this mystical essence that the book had. You'd have to read it. I don't want to spoil too much. And there are a few other little problems with the book as well. I felt that were like, okay, So, but other than that, I highly recommend this. This is really well done. You just absolutely feel like, oh my gosh. Yeah, you just feel this kind of vastness, and Miss Bunting did a very great job at explaining that, and this really very descriptive writing, giving great examples, and like I could visualize everything. As I said, it felt like I was watching the 1997 film. So great job there. I'm just gonna read to you guys this little section here. I can't tell you how many times they foreshadowed the issue of the lifeboats, the life jackets, and the ship sinking. It was all over the book, which felt so like, it's coming. This disaster is coming, and there's no way that you're gonna avoid that, So great job at placing this like impending doom and this fear and dread inside the story. So really quickly, I'm just going to read this little excerpt here on page 82 of the book. And then I want to read another section where the iceberg actually hit. I was like, it kind of shocked me when it did. I was like Celine Dion in the music video, I believe, when I haven't seen that music video in so long, but there's a climactic part where her voice goes, na 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 na, or you're here. Oh my gosh, when she goes like, that part that's like the heartstrings, like, it's like the ship is passing this mountain of white ice, like, oh my god, like a bump to them, but horrendous in the boiler room, So let's quickly read this little section and then we'll get to our next book. So Barry, our main character, he lay watching the sparkle of cold sun on cold ocean. No land anywhere. Nothing. What a terrible thing if the ship did sink. Nowhere to swim to. Nothing but emptiness and your feet going down, feeling for a bottom that wasn't there. And your head going under the waves, down and down into that greenness. Shivers chased one another up and down his legs. What a thing to think about. Okay, and then this very scene is where the iceberg collides with the ship. Barry, he is kind of like in love a little bit. You know, the little teen romance is going on in the book with his enemy's sister. So the Flynn boys, who are from his town, troublemakers, they have a sister that Barry barely knows. That's another aspect of the book that I would not give it, like, you know, the highest rating. It's like something about the way that he approached the way that she approached the love story for Barry, and let's call her Peggy. Her name is Pegine or Pegine. I can't, but I'm gonna call her Peggy, y'all. So the way that she approached that, it felt a little bit like, this is unrealistic. Like, stop. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, but I was like, what's going on? So finally, those two were meeting together, and they were kind of having a conversation. And like it's almost like in most movies when people are about to kiss and then somebody comes tap you on the shoulder kind of thing. That wasn't happening, but it felt, you know, like that same feeling. So let's see here. So it's Peggy and Barry. So then she was there. She had wrapped herself again in the shawl. It hid her hair and turned her into a shapeless bundle of black. The silver pin at her neck gleamed through the weave of the wool. Johnny brought the life jackets, she said. Thank you. But I thought maybe there was more you wanted to say to me. There is. His mouth was so numb with cold that the words wouldn't come. He wished she'd worn the long black coat that came almost to her ankles because the cold was desperate, sinking through the flesh and bones, turning the marrow inside them to ice. Let's go inside, he muttered. Peggy pulled away. No, what if one of the stewards saw me and sent me back to my rightful place? I'd die of shame. She would, he knew, but it was so cold. We could go down to the steerage then, he said. We can't be out here. You can't. No, Frank and Johnny might be around. Well, he didn't want that either. The whistle might not save him next time. Just tell me fast what it is you want, Peggy said. Everything jumbled in his head. The danger to the ship, if there was danger, that she should be ready if anything happened. He stared at her, not knowing where to begin or how to make sense. Did she know that he liked her? Which was daft. Did she know? It was almost... Oh my god, I can't concentrate with this. Okay. I'm moving the camera just a little bit closer so it's not exactly too close to the radiator. Let me finish this little section and then we'll wait for the radiator sound to pass. So annoying. It was mostly the life jackets, he said. I was worried you might need them. And then there was a sudden, gentle jolt. A ripping sound as if someone had drawn a knife along the outside of the ship. The way Johnny Flynn had drawn his knife across grandfather's carriageway back in Mullenmore. There was a fumbling around, like marbles rolling along the deck. Thousands and thousands of marbles. What? Peggy clutched at his arm. What was that? Look! She was pointing over his shoulder. Look! This part was like... Jesus. Like, whoa. It got me like a little freaked a little bit, you know. Sailing past them, towering above the deck where they stood, so close that if a person leaned over the railing, a person could touch it, was a ghostly white shape. They stared at it, speechless, as it passed them, or as they passed it. Was it another ship? Peggy whispered. One of those old-fashioned ships with great white sails? But sure, there aren't any of those anymore, only in paintings. Did it bump into us? I felt a little bit of a thump. Barry began. It was an iceberg. We just missed it. Maybe it touched us. In the strange white light, it seemed as if 1,000 stars had fallen from the sky. They lay small and glittering on the deck. Barry fumbled to pick one up. It shone on his glove. "Ice," he said, and at that moment he heard far away in the depths of the ship a dull sound that he'd never heard before but knew. The distant metal thump of a watertight door coming down, and another, like traps, he thought, like guillotines falling. They stood in terrified silence as the Titanic came to a smooth, silent stop. How scary is that? Can you just like put yourself in their shoes for just a second and just imagine that? Like, that's absolutely terrifying. One of the worst fears for sure. Being out in open water on a sinking ship, especially in cold water. How scary is that? But honestly, such a fantastic book, and I'm really glad that I read it, and I'm happy to finally have something under my belt, especially since I haven't read in such a very long time. It was good to kind of start with a children's book, you know, very easy to read and just really great. Really great. Okay, next book after Titanic is The Anatomy of a Metahuman, which is just such a fantastic book. Honestly, if I had to give it a rating, I would give it a 4.25 maybe. That's just what I feel in my heart for it. So yeah, this book, it was fantastic. It is really just absolutely so detailed and very thorough, and it doesn't like it's not skimping on the information side. So there's just so many different characters in here. I'll give you my reasoning as to why I would honestly drop it the rating so much. But yeah, we have all of these different villains and anti-heroes as well as superheroes in here, including Superman, the Cheetah, Aquaman, Cyborg, Martian Manhunter, Swamp Thing, Darkseid, Bane, Doomsday, Killer Croc, Bizarro, Killer Frost. So yeah, this book basically is like an anatomy and physiology kind of book. So it just tells you about the cell structure and the membranes and the tissues and the whys and how the functionality of these superheroes and villains. And am I making any sense? But yes, it is talking to you about the way that they are built, and it goes down to the down to your cells pretty much. Okay, so just think of it like, for example, if you're talking about the positionality, structure, and function of and the use, of course, of like the stomach or something. Yeah, so if you're saying like the structure of the stomach, where it is located, what it is used for, what is its shape, like it's a J shape and is used for the digestion of food. So that's the basics of anatomy and physiology. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. Oh my goodness, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but I should be able to properly talk about what it is. But yeah, so that's what this is looking into, okay? The Anatomy of a Metahuman. It is such a great book, and I really enjoyed this as a superhero lover, as a superhero fan, comic book fan. This was a great book. I highly recommend it. One of the reasons why I am reducing its rating is because I looked up what a metahuman was in DC's definition of what a metahuman is. Yeah, so a metahuman is a human with superpowers. And I was like, you have somebody here on the cover of the book. Are we considering Superman a human being? Because he's an alien. Are we considering Martian Manhunter as a human being? Because he comes from Mars, right? So I'm like, that's where it kind of lost me a little bit. I'm like, if you're human with superpowers, Cyborg, that seems like it quantifies. Aquaman seems to, qualify as well. I was a little bit spun out when I was reading this, because I was like, is that the proper way that we are now defining metahumans? I thought it was just somebody who, mutated, who was a human being who mutated and had power. So yeah, I don't know. Please somebody help me and correct me on this. But that's where I'm like, I don't understand. And also they didn't define metahuman in the book, not that I could see. So that's where that rating comes from. But this is absolutely really, really great. And I do highly recommend it if you're into this kind of thing. I'm going to quickly read Batman's outro as I did read the intro in this vlog that I will put up in the cards. So sorry if the camera is like shifty and moving, if things are a little displaced, because I do move it. It's literally on the radiator and I don't want it to be set off because it's hot, if you understand what I'm saying. So yes, let's go ahead and read Bruce Wayne's conclusion. And again, this is pretty much his research, this whole book, isn't it? Okay, so conclusion. Let me try that Bruce Wayne voice again. As I was working on this report, I couldn't help but wonder if what I was doing here was enough. It's several years worth of scientific conjecture, but it's just that. There's not enough hard data to say conclusively what makes Superman fly, what powers the gods possess, how the brain receives or emits there goes a tough word for me. Words that begin with the letter T sometimes are just up. You'll see it in another vlog. Teething, thumbtack. Even the word time sometimes. I want to say the herb. Thyme. Time. Fine. Why is English so hard? Okay. There's not enough hard data to say conclusively what makes Superman fly, what powers the gods possess, how the brain receives or emits telepathic energy, what anomaly holds Swamp Thing's consciousness together. I have theories, but even with access to the files of some of the world's most clandestine agencies, that's all they are. It goes without saying that this research must remain hidden. Tell me that's so funny. It goes without saying, and then people go ahead and say it.
What isn't clear is why people always say it goes without saying, yet still feel compelled to say the thing that was supposed to go without saying.
Okay. I know firsthand how the Lex Luthors and Ra's al Ghuls of the world can pervert and weaponize information like this. Metahumans are a part of our daily reality now, and we learn more about them every day. Our planet has become a melting pot of human, alien, metagene, and mortal, just like my father before me. I'm both an optimist and a cynic, and while the presence of these beings is a source of hope and fascination, I am also compelled to prepare for the worst. Paranoia. This research represents the first in-depth examination of the processes by which these beings function in our physical world. It is the first step towards understanding the science behind the impossible, and I believe somewhere in these pages may lie the key to protecting humanity from destruction. Our path to fully understanding metahuman starts here, and even though my work may just scratch the surface, for now, it has to be enough. Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. Yo! There's a Batman movie coming out soon. It feels like forever. It feels like a lifetime. It feels like a lifetime ago now since we had a superhero. Well, yeah, we did. Sorry, Spider-Man did just come out, didn't it? And people love that. I have never seen any of those Spider-Man movies. But yeah, it feels like a lifetime since a DC flick has come out. Last one was 1984, which was really good. Wonder Woman's 1984. So that's The Anatomy of a Metahuman. Absolutely loved it. Let's go ahead and move on to our next book. So our next book here is Sam's Letters to Jennifer. So I feel like I romanticized this book maybe a little bit for my second run. I didn't like it as much as I did the first time. I read this in high school years ago, and I remember how much I loved the story, how much I was like so like enamored and just like taken and emotionally connected to the story back then, and how beautiful the story was. I was like, this is just something I've never seen in my life, and it's just so sweet and romantic, and just, you know, it's just I thought it was incredible. Today I didn't enjoy it as much. If you're the type of person who likes those 90-minute chick flicks or a classic Nicholas Spark, oh, I feel like I said his name wrong. I never will get his last name correct. Spark or Sparks? Nicholas Spark. I don't know. Anyway, Mr. New Bern, North Carolina. I was gonna say California. Yeah, if you enjoy this kind of movies and even books, you're going to like this a lot. It's not that I did not like this book. I did like it. I love the story. I just found that some aspects of it were like, okay, it's not as good as I remembered. It's still a great read and it goes by super fast. So if I had to give the rating for this, I would give this like 3 stars, honestly. It was good, you know. I enjoyed the story and I smiled and was happy to read it. Was I emotionally as invested as I was, you know, when I read it in my youth? No. I did remember a lot of details, and I found that was really cool to kind of revisit this kind of part of my brain a little bit. So let's go ahead and talk about what the book is about. So Sam's letters to Jennifer. As I was stating in a previous vlog, this is a story about someone who is a grandmother and somebody who's a granddaughter. They are in a sense communicating with one another through letters. So Sam is the grandma and Jennifer is the granddaughter. And again, Sam has, you know, that androgynous name, so you would not guess that once you pick up the book. And I think that could actually frustrate quite a few people if you don't know that. But there's still a gorgeous and sweet and endearing love story in this book with Jennifer and this guy in the area. So Sam has taken a fall in her vacation kind of retirement home, and Jennifer is called to this lake kind of town to go and, you know, see her grandmother, because they basically are all they have. I believe that she's kind of an orphan, and the grandma is all that Jennifer has. So when she comes to this lake town, she basically gets the key from this reverend guy who she gets the key to the house to just make herself at home. This is a place that she grew up in, and that's the environment that she's in. So there's like a stack of letters in the house that are addressed to Jennifer by her grandmother, and you just start to, you know, look into the grandmother's past, her love life, her story with her husband, who is Jennifer's grandfather, and things of that sort. Meanwhile, in reality, Jennifer is has kind of gone through her own little heartbreak because of something that happened in her past. Really sad stuff. And she meets this guy on the lake. And of course, they fall in love, and there's this certain Nicholas Sparks aspect of somebody's going to die. Somebody is sick, you know what I mean? So that's the story pretty much. And I guess why I would give it such a, I guess a critical rating like this, a 3.25 or 3, is it 3 stars? I think it's a 3 stars. So like 3 stars is because of this aspect that Sam, the grandmother, although she had an abusive husband and somebody who kind of neglected and ignored her and wasn't too really, I don't want to say fond, but wasn't too really involved in her marriage, her husband, she kind of fell in love with somebody while she was married, and she went along with it. It's not as if the husband died and then, you know, she went and had that relationship. So she had an affair, and I'm like, if there's anything that turns me off to like a story is thinking just because you're mistreated that you know have to proceed on to have an affair. I just think that's so, like, you know, it's undignified a bit. It's not fair, and it's not proper, you know. So that's something that's just my like personal opinion about it. And yeah, that's just what I felt like was a little sour note. Like, I don't know where my brain was that I would have missed something like that years ago reading this in high school. But yeah, I don't think I had such a severe reaction to it as I did today. Today I'm like, I'm grown. So I'm like, that don't fly with me. So yeah, I really love this. And again, this is such a beautiful, easy story that you can digest in about a day or two if you really just stick with it. Beautiful story, classic James Patterson. There is a book that kind of feels quite similar to it. It's called Suzanne's Diary for Nicholas, and I really, really like that book. I actually read it in the last 6 years or so a little more recently than this one. I'm gonna reread Suzanne's Diary again on the channel one day, and I think I may not change my mind about that one. But yeah, pick this up if you like those kind of, you know, saccharine, cheesy, corny, sappy, diabetic stories. Pick it up. It's a nice story. Don't let my little my criticism deter you from reading this. It's still a really beautiful story, but you know, there are some flaws in it that I personally don't agree with morally. And yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about that. Still an epic and nice, cozy book to just read if you want to get those juices flowing as far as your reading habit. Okay, so our next book that we have on the ballot, on the ticket, on the marquee, okay, is Politically Correct Bedtime Stories, Modern Tales for Our Life and Times by Jane Finn Garner. So this book, honestly, this is a 5-star read for me. Really, really is. This book is absolutely sassy and saucy. It's controversial. It like makes you think. I don't think it would fly in our times. And it's insane that this is a 1994 published book, and the terminologies that I'm hearing throughout the different, not fables, but fairy tales by Hans Christian Andersen and Brothers Grimm. I believe those are their names. It's insane the way Garner wrote this book. I was LOLing all the way to sleep. Absolute gem. Pick this up. That's all I got to say. Pick this up. It's not for the faint of heart, honestly. He makes you angry, and he makes you laugh, and he makes you sad a little bit, and happy, and just like, it's satire at its best. It's absolutely satire at its best, and it's so well done. Slim little book. I think, I'm trying to think if this is okay for children. Probably not. You would want to keep it for if you're like 15 and up, maybe. But yes, this is a really fantastic book, and it has so many different bedtime stories that everybody is quite familiar with. I'm gonna read them off just as I did Metahumans. So we have Little Red Riding Hood, The Emperor's New Clothes, The Three Little Pigs, Rumpelstiltskin, The Three Codependent Goats Gruff, I knew this was gonna happen. Earlier I was reading the list. I was like, Rumpelstiltskin, Rapunzel. Oh my gosh. What does my mouth and mind want to do? So we have Rapunzel, Cinderella, Goldilocks, Snow White, Chicken Little, The Frog Prince, Jack and the Beanstalk, and The Pied Piper of Hamelin. So out of those stories, I have to say my favorite ones are Little Red Riding Hood. I love Rumpelstiltskin, where you know that story. I don't want to go into that too much. I like Goldilocks. Goldilocks starts with such a like atomic bomb, like an hydrogen bomb, like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, like whoa, it starts out very crazy. Yeah, and I believe that's the bulk of it. Those are some of my favorite stories. They're all really well done, and I just think that everybody should read this. It can insult and it can be considered controversial for sure, but I think that everybody should read just everything, you know? Read things that make you angry, read things that make you happy, read things that are controversial, read things that, you know, are not popular, you know? And just read interesting things, read different things, and have a variety in your reading diet. So, highly recommend this. This is absolutely a 5-star read for me. I can't tell you how much I love this book, and how surprised I was that the language that Garner was using was so like is being used today. I thought this was like a newer feel in regarding to culture, but I guess things have been, you know, starting up back in the day, which was about almost 30 years ago. Can you believe the 90s? Almost 30 years ago. So yeah, pick up this book if you like. I give this one 5 stars. So I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and the video is coming to a close. The radiator is dying down as well. So yeah, so I'm just so grateful to have been able to read these stories, and I can't wait to, you know, get into the February reads as well. So I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you in my very next one.